fungicide on canola in spring as an insurance against yield loss has become a common practice. But is it worth it when you're not in a high rainfall zone? A GRDC investment in field studies on the yield response to spraying Sclerotinia has shown medium rainfall growers really need to do their homework.
Fungicide use and Sclerotinia control in that high rainfall environment was probably a bit clearer. The rules around it, when we should, when we shouldn't. That low and medium rainfall zone probably wasn't as clear. And we've sort of now got to the stage where, fungicide use in these rainfall zones seems to be more the norm rather than the exception. And I think we're smarter than that.
The trials were initiated through GRDC's National Grower Network. Grain Orana Alliance and Brill Ag have set them up in real crops in Western New South Wales, not trial plots.
We've actually placed these trials in growers' paddocks. We go looking for sites where we've got a good crop, good potential, sown on time. We'll then come in and then we'll apply a range of fungicide treatments at different timing. Then we'll come back and we'll measure all the disease, and we've done that today, measured all the relevant diseases.
Yeah, we're trying to get two separate measurements of about a square metre in each plot. So I'll go through and count the number of plants in that square metre. And this one's actually quite thick compared to a lot of the other ones. So we know then how many plants we've got, and then the Sclerotinia one is quite good because it's quite objective. We can just go in there and count the number of plants that have Sclerotinia infection.
And then we'll come back and harvest it. And going on from that, we can tell you, well, was it worth it? Was it economically worth it or not? We haven't got the harvest done. We've got to wait for the lie detector to go in. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say I don't think there'll be an economic case for spraying fungicides in this paddock in this year.
As it turned out, when they did run the data, Maurie was right. But hindsight's a luxury growers don't have mid-season.
Fungicides are prophylactic. They're preventative rather than curative. Once you get to this stage of the crop, there's nothing you can do to turn back that time. So we have to make a judgment call at a time.
But that can be an informed decision. And measuring the level of disease this year is critical data for spray decisions in future seasons.
Without looking at that paddock this year, he won't have that information for 2027 to make that decision. So I think objectively measuring the amount of disease in the paddock now to help make decisions in 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 and be really objective about that. So this time of year around windrow timing, it's good to be really objective and get some numbers on how much disease is in your crop. If you've got no Sclerotinia in this crop and you haven't sprayed it, then it might be because it's dry, but if it's been wet and there's no Sclerotinia, you know you're not high risk, and that can help guide your decisions in future. So I've just come into the crop here. Canola is a bit notoriously hard to get into, so it's probably a good thing to do as soon as the crop is windrowed, because you're going to get a lot of access, you're going to be able to get more measurement points, but you want to be looking at 10 or 20 spots across the paddock, and a simple way is just counting along 20 plants and then looking along those 20 plants, just how many have disease. And you can see along 20 plants here, we've got one plant with disease, so around about a 5% infection in this spot. So potentially if we use a rule of thumb of 1% infection equals 0.5% yield loss, we're looking at there, say 2.5% yield loss. Yeah, so if we go in there and we measure 5% of plants have Sclerotinia, and often 5% looks worse than 5%. Your eyes do hone in on the different culprit. So there's 5% infection, we might be sort of looking at say 2.5% yield loss. So if you've got a 2-tonne crop, you're looking at say 50 odd kilos of yield loss. So at the moment, that's around $35, $40 a hectare. So you can sort of then work out the economics of the return on investment of a fungicide decision on that.
Fortunately, when you're next trying to decide whether or not to spray, there's an app to help. The Sclerotinia CM tool, developed as a collaboration under a GRDC investment. Enter your paddock, history of rotations and previous yield loss, the current state of the crop, weather, observations and forecast, spray cost and grain price, and it gives you a likely return from spraying, positive or negative.
I think it's really valuable, and it's been really a great investment for GRDC. Growers are looking for, to try and squeeze every bit that they can out of every acre, and fungicides could be part of that. But I go back and say the same thing again. I think we can be smarter about our deployment of them and use them a bit more judiciously.